Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we are back to another recording of Shadowverse. Today is Wednesday, September 9th. Now, I've dropped the ball a little bit, in the fact that I just have not been particularly active on making sure to get all of these daily quests done. We're outside of the solo player things, and for instance, as far as the main story in practice, doing Forcecraft and Shadowcraft, I don't think there's any reason to keep that. So let's re-roll that one. And so now we're down to win 5 matches in general in main story in practice versus winning 2 ranked matches for 30 rupees. So you can see that I've been shortchanging myself quite a bit by trying to get the solo story done. I could have been making more gold just doing ranked matches. Although getting 2 ranked matches is still fairly difficult, and I've also failed to reset the daily mission for the temporary gyms at the right time. So that's a bit of a loss too. More and more, though, this will be a situation where I will probably just always have 3 daily quests, and we'll do whatever we can do, and then whatever gets accomplished, whatever doesn't get accomplished, doesn't get accomplished. I have now won 5 ranked matches with Shadowcraft, which is a very, very sad statement. Meanwhile, we can open a pack, because we still are getting decent amounts of that. Yeah, what it kind of breaks down to is the idea that you need to log into Shadowverse every single day, which is in line with any other like free-to-play game. They want you to log in every single day. It would be nice if somebody would be a little bit more lenient on that, and it was like every 2 days even. There we go, we got the Wheel of Fortune card, which that's cool. Hey, let's buy another one since we had a good draw there. You need to log in every day, but I don't think I can commit to logging in every day, getting 2 to 5 potential daily quests. Well, getting potentially 3 daily quests that would require 2 to 5 ranked victories. That's asking quite a lot at my current level of win to loss ratio. Alright, so let's liquefy the extra cards. Let's see, that was 15. We just got 16 cards. 15 of them were unnecessary duplicates. Which, yeah, we are certainly at that level where if we look specifically at Fortune's Hand, we've got this card, Night Screech, which would need 800 vials to craft, so it's a high level rarity. Then 3 cards here, which one of these is definitely a Wheel of Fortune card because it has a number in front of it, where the other 2 aren't. And then what else? We've got 4 more here, with this being another tarot card. And then 3, 4 here, with none of those being tarot cards. And then 1, 2, 3 here, with none of those being tarot cards. With 1 here. And then this one is the tarot card. And then this one is a tarot. Nope, that isn't a tarot card. 3 more of those. Then 3 more of those. And then 1 more of those. So that makes it seem to me like there's about 4 or 5 tarot cards that we haven't collected. But if I was to go over here and look at the tradables, we are missing 2 here. We are missing 3 here, but I am now realizing that some of these are not tarot cards. We are missing 2 here. So it's all the legendaries are tradable, not just the top tier legendaries. Okay. We don't have 2 of anything. So, yeah, you really are going to have to, well, you're going to have to open up 300 more packs in this expansion before you even could start to think about if the tradable system actually is helpful at all. Arena-wise, I had already done that, so in 5 hours that'll reset again. Unfortunately, I've just got the time completely set wrong for today's stream, which then that just really leaves us with ranked matches and story wins. So let's try and get the story stuff out of the way and trying to go through the news. That way today won't be a particularly long stream. We don't have a ton of news. I have, for the accountability section, not done too much. I can say in Battleship Brigade I have defeated the final challenge that was required to get you into the Battleship Brigade, and it did a little bit of a kind of cutscene to the next chapter, and then it took me an hour to do the 3 challenges in a row battle against the final challenge, which was a challenge against a Lieutenant Knife, a Lieutenant Spoon, and a Lieutenant Fork. And one of the battles, the first battle, was incredibly high difficulty spike, and it just requires you to fight the most difficult creatures that you can fight in Battleship Brigade to harvest their meat and cook with. It's a weird hunting slash cooking gameplay mechanic that is, for the most part, way more focused on giving you a very kinetic, linear, visual novel story than anything else. But there's a dragon that you could have always fought in practice mode, which would have given you infinite amount of time, or you could have fought in previous battles, but then you would have only had about 6 minutes to defeat it, and that's kind of hard to do. Like, you have to get way better at the hunting aspect in that gameplay mechanic, which isn't very well polished in my opinion, than you would likely ever run into. So, yeah, it took me 4 or 5 tries, it felt like, to get through that first battle, and when you failed it just said retry. It didn't even let you go back to the menu, and I was afraid if I failed the second challenge it would reset me back to the first challenge, which that would have been really annoying, but thank goodness that didn't happen.
This is a great damage sustained.
But after I got past the first battle of the 3 battles in a row, the other 2 went back to the way the game had been up until that point, where it really felt like the game was just cheating for me to make me win, and I beat the 3rd challenge by like 160 points in a very low scoring game where 200 or 300 points is the what you were getting, or what I was getting generally on a dish. Let's see. Do we want to evolve something here?
You will soon learn. The order will remain.
So yeah, I'm definitely getting really distracted, and I'm on the verge of being even more distracted as I'm about to get the last piece of my computer and start putting that together, which will probably be a week of distraction. I'm still not really focusing in on scheduling things, which needs to be done, and it's just so awful. And clearly, if my YouTube channel was making any money, I would hire someone immediately to be in charge of scheduling all the videos, because I just don't want to do it.
Witness the power.
I did get an email from YouTube saying, hey, if you don't get back to the level of 1,000 subscribers and a certain amount of watch time in the next 30 days, we're going to invalidate your agreement with us for the YouTube Partner Program previously, which doesn't really mean anything. It's just them covering their own butts, I imagine, like, because they weren't honoring the YouTube Partner Program agreement in the past anyways, and not in any way that is just and fair to small YouTube creators. Because if they were honoring it, they would have kept me in the partner program and allowed me to continue to run a few ads and get a few pennies on my YouTube channel. If anything, I could have made maybe even $200 or $300 this year compared to like the last year where I made like only $100. Still very much not a business, or not anything that works. But I have, relatively speaking, tripled the number of subscribers I've had. It hasn't tripled the number of views, though. We still have a lot of scenarios where live streams come out and nobody watches them at all. Videos come out and nobody watches them at all. At least on any metric that I can keep an eye on. It might be that my videos are getting the occasional view here and there a week later, 2 weeks later. The kind of footage I make in general isn't something that has to be seen immediately. It was designed to be more evergreen. And I really don't have a lot of desire to try to drastically shift my channel into like a clickbaity, you've got to click this now, you've got to see this now type channel. And those are the only kinds of channels that have any modicum of success at all on YouTube. If anything, I'm most surprised that it seems like I get a decent number of, well, I have a decent number of subscribers on BitChute, which is cool.
The next generation will rise.
But unless BitChute manages to become the ultimate, this is where everybody's eyes are, and somehow manages to replace YouTube, which is unlikely for something like that to happen. I think we'll probably see more of a splitting between different developers and different publishers, and there'll be 5 or 6 different places, in the same way that Facebook was kind of for a small time there. Facebook was like the only place to post your thoughts as a small time person, but now we have Facebook kind of bifurcated with Twitter and maybe a little bit of Reddit and maybe even a little bit of the 4chans and sites like that, and Instagram for people that just want to post pictures. And I wouldn't be surprised if there is a increase in the number of different places where one can post, and more split. Right, this will give you Storm. This will Whenever Serpent comes into play. That'd be interesting if I could bring Serpents into play. This could do 2 damage. This could do that. And that. Let's see how this works. Give +X to the Bloodcraft follower in your hand. Okay, well.
What's gonna burn? Everything?
Deal 2 damage to an enemy follower.
I love you. Shutting down.
Go ahead and evolve this.
The power.
Emergency mode activated.
And attack here.
Identified.
The order will remain.
You still definitely have a problem playing these like single player challenges,
Makes the world go round.
in that they can be very unique challenges later on in the chapters, particularly. Like the prologue ones are super easy and super straightforward, but here you're going to have to find the right pre-built deck that they were expecting you to use, and if you don't use the right card, then or the right pre-built deck, you just don't know what's gonna how this is gonna work, or if you're gonna win.
Ready to launch. Verifying access. Shutting down.
Alright, well, let's start going through the video game news, since I don't have a lot of other things to say. Let's see. I'm just gonna scroll down through my Twitter feed, and probably should just concede at this point, but whatever. Storm of Vengeance is activated for you.
Empowers me.
And then this,
Let's wrap this up.
and then evolve.
Let us conclude.
Wrinkle and ride.
Gear Snake Tamer. Now they're Machina players, which means that they would be more Machina characters that would be destroyed, which would build up this ability for Technolord.
Sweet.
That,
Live by the sword, die by the sword.
that,
Thanks. Please come again.
and that.
Aiming on this
Still
thing
not
sucks.
good enough though. Look at this. I've been able to do exactly 0 damage. Inherently, this is also part of the problem of why I'm not getting these daily quests and these solo quests done. Is there's a lot of attention that's required to actually try and win, versus, oh, you just need to play a certain number of games. And that was one of the things that I think Hearthstone actually was more generous with than any other collectible card game, was the idea that you were just necessary. It was just necessary that you play like 7 games versus actually winning 3 games or 5 games, because there's a big difference there in the amount of time you have to commit to, and just how much effort that takes. Theoretically, what I would need is something that is much more of an idle game than even a collectible card game, and I don't know. I don't know if there'd be any fandom there for something like that. Like, sure, I could bring up a just idle clicker and basically a screensaver playing and talk over it, but I don't know if that in any way would get any viewers.
Damage sustained.
that there is a certain level at which a game stops even being a video game.
Prosperity
And-
upon this land.
There were definitely some screensavers back in the day that were like that, where since you had nothing better to do with your time, you could just focus all of your attention on watching watching the screensaver randomize and play. Right, what do we want? That.
The next generation will rise.
And then that.
The next generation will rise.
Interesting.
Do not lose hope. Do not falter. Have
Okay.
faith in yourself.
So, Gamatsu has an article here. Tetris Effect Connected launches November 12th. Multiplayer puzzle game due out alongside the Xbox Series launch for Xbox One and Xbox Series. I guess that is the new title now, since Xbox has come out and said there is a Series S and a Series X. Okay, cool. Eventually I probably will get around to playing Tetris Effect, although there might not really be too much to say there. That there is there is certainly a issue with the idea of playing a game like Tetris Effect, which is just a more of an experience than a something you could criticize. Your experience may vary wildly in something like Tetris Effect, and this is my kind of basic excuse for not reviewing a lot of games, is that even if you were playing Tetris Effect in a single player mode, which I'm not sure Connected even has a single player mode, there is there is a whether you have a good run experience versus whether you have a bad run experience. There is a lot of wild variety that could happen there.
Witness the power.
Died in azure, as you wish.
See, there's a card here. You'll deal damage to your leader until the defense drops to 10 if vengeance is not activated for you. And then there's a card that would synergize with this theoretically, where you don't take any damage to your leader, instead your opponent does. Czech Raptor has this, and lots of people have this. The Xbox Series X will cost $499. Pre-orders begin September 22nd for a November 10th launch. They have pulled the trigger there. I just don't think that anybody could wait any longer. So, yeah. I don't think there's any real new surprises for the Series X. And we also know that the Series S exists now, and it's basically got no CD-ROM drive at all. It's all digital, and it's going for a very white look, which I think is weird that they're going with white for what I would argue would probably sell better in the Asian market, being smaller, and then they go black for the bigger Western design. If they had just flipped that, that probably would have worked better. You can see there's this big, what looks like a speaker, but what is almost certainly actually just a fan grill where it cools. It is selling for $299. none of these are by people's mentality great deals. Like, they do, particularly at the moment, seemed to interesting. I just accidentally transformed a card.
Such a bore.
Kill that. Kill that. Involve this, I guess. Which probably loses out on my only chance of actually winning.
The order will remain.
But I couldn't have won with this anyways.
Money makes the world go round.
It includes a new wireless controller the Xbox Series X does. But there is also a like payment plan with the Xbox Series S, I believe, where you're basically paying just slightly over the cost of a monthly payment for Xbox whatever Live Premium, whatever that the highest of there is. I think I need to have these facts really in front of me to confirm this, but it's like a 24-month payment plan where you're paying about $21 extra to pay off the price of the Xbox Series S, which maybe isn't the best deal, but it doesn't really sound like it is the worst. Let's see. Let's see. No, it's actually for the Xbox Series X. Let's see. $24.99 for Xbox All Access over 24 months, which means you'll be able to get the new Xbox with no upfront cost. I don't know how that really gets explained, because that doesn't make any sense. Here it's saying it'll cost $500 for the Xbox Series X, but if you pay for 2 years, 24 months, $25, then you would pay the roughly same amount as the cost for the hardware for Xbox All Access. So does that mean you get 2 years of Xbox All Access, or do you get the hardware as long as you promise to pay?
Go forth and cross your blood.
Bats again. I'm not a kid anymore.
Yeah.
My rose is blue, crimson.
So yeah, this article is not explaining this
Blade and I are one.
well at all. Maybe we'll find a better article. Tech Raptors getting worse. Kotaku UK also shut down. I don't know if that really means anything to anybody, but I suppose it's worth mentioning.
I'll do my best for you.
A weak performance.
TechRaptor has an article here. Microsoft brings next generation to Xbox All Access and expands territories. EA Play now will come with Xbox Games Pass for free as part of the Xbox Games Ultimate, which is $24.99 again. So where I think this breaks down is when the consoles launch, you'll get an Xbox Series X or S with 24 months of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate for $24.99 a month.
Shall know the dance of death.
Commencing termination protocol.
So it is a payment program. And what's interesting is that Microsoft shut down all of its stores that were running that payment program before, the small payments program. And I guess that's about as much as Microsoft is capable of doing. I would say, I'm not even going to say willing. It's really all they can do. Times are tough. It's going to be really, really hard for people to justify putting out even $2.99 for a new console, particularly on the Xbox side when you know that there's PlayStation exclusives happening and the Microsoft games aren't the most thrilling lineup you've ever seen. Nope. Darn it.
Damage sustained.
Oh, that sucks, but whatever.
Damage sustained.
But I don't know what else they could do. You can't bring these contracts to like 4 years long. I wouldn't be surprised if they fairly quickly stop doing the monthly payment programs, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of storefronts do not emphasize the payment plan elements. I wouldn't be surprised if there is a higher percentage of people that start the payment plans and then stop playing the payment plans, and that there is a built-in system in all the Xboxes to shut them down if you don't pay. And there probably is some system in which you can't just unplug it from the network. See, if I had this card and the other card and involved both of them at the same time, which is impossible. Yeah. There's no way to play this card with the other card. Not without a third card to evolve it.
Don't get close.
Give your leader the following effect until the start of next turn. Reduce the damage of your leader to 0 until the start of your next. Yeah. This effect lasts until the follower leaves play. So I'd have to evolve this, keep it in play, and play the other card.
Howl, Platinum Chain!
So TechRaptor continues. What does Xbox All Access include? You get either an Xbox Series S. It's actually not a great deal to commit to 24 months of Game Pass Ultimate to get the Series S. You might as well get the Series X. So I don't know what the target market there is. It does seem like it is fairly wasteful.
Do not lose hope.
But we may see that there actually is a limited number of Series X consoles, and people will take the people might take the worst deal just to have a product to give. And honestly, there is a possibility that there is just going to be a high number of people and parents that buy new consoles as a way of intentionally bribing their kids and just trying to keep their kids happy in such unprecedented times, to use that phrase.
Proceeding to final stage.
Let's see, what else do you get? Game Pass Ultimate allows you to play games included with your Xbox Game Pass on both your console and PC, so there is a kind of an argument to getting Game Pass Ultimate if you are new to PC gaming or transitioning from Xbox, although you're really just setting yourself up for lock-in in the longer run, and you would be better off just making a clean break and going to Steam. Yeah, there's no way this works.
Witness the power.
I think. Yeah, I just don't think there's a way this works. Let's see. You also get access to Microsoft's xCloud service with Ultimate starting September 15th. Naturally, the pricing is different depending on whether you opt for the less powerful Series S or Series X. It's $24.99 a month for Series S and $34.99 for Series X. Either way, you'll get a Game Pass Ultimate subscription too, which does kind of make it seem like they are probably thinking about getting rid of just the Xbox Live Gold part of that was required as far as the ones that you had to pay for just to be able to play online.
This is all thanks to you, Master. This is so unbecoming of me.
And if you multiply $35 by 20, then you have roughly $700 you've paid for the Series X hardware and the subscription, and then it really would be $770 in total. So over the course of 2 years, you're paying $500 for the top of the line hardware, which you probably don't need. The best bet here clearly would be to play the waiting game and just purchase the Series Xbox One X, like the previous generation top of the line device. Get that potentially used or get that potentially cheap, and you will probably be fine for a couple of years. I wouldn't be surprised if the Series X is kind of a transition console, and we see technologies that are tested in the Series X get more fleshed out in the next generation console, one way or the other. I suppose it is worth mentioning here that it does seem like they have been able to remove about an inch in the height of the Xbox Series X for the Series S, and they definitely have been able to get it to about a third of the thickness. So I imagine a lot of that is not just the CD-ROM, though. If I suspect anything, having kind of seen the teardown for this, I suspect there is no power supply in this one, and there is a big old power brick that they're not mentioning comes with this one, where the power supply I think is built in that one, although they may both have a big power brick for all I know.
Prosperity upon this land.
Let's see. There's a list here if you're interested in as far as all the territories it's going to be available in also. And that probably is the biggest news for today, and it is really kind of just incremental bits of news. It's not something you can get super hyped about. As we knew a price and a date was going to be announced. EA Play getting combined is interesting. I think that probably just is more evidence that EA is getting rid of the idea of EA Play being anything super special. And I wouldn't be surprised if EA pretty much abandons the EA Play program. Particularly if EA starts running out of new games that they're making. Moving on, Gematsu has an article, Dirt 5 for the Xbox Series. It launches November 10th. and they have gameplay of a New York ice racing. Another dirt game, which sadly probably means the previous dirt game will stop being available on sale more than anything else. And I don't even know if Dirt 4 was particularly that good. Can I do something here? Let's see, deal 2 damage to that, I guess.
This thirst, quench them.
Then I could evolve this.
Money makes the world go round.
Gamma Sutra has an article here. There's a report that Nintendo is boosting Switch production to meet consumer demand. That makes sense. Bloomberg also claims that a beefed up Switch is reportedly in the works. And so I guess this is another Jason Schreier Bloomberg article. I heard someone talking about just how old and out of touch and how few mainstream video game reviewers there are, and while a lot of that is probably just mudslinging, there probably is a level to that is also true. And that's not inherently, I think, unique to video game reviewing. I imagine if you sat down and tried to make a list of all the investigative journalists and all the reporters and commentators and talking heads that exist on TV and in newspapers, you probably would get a fairly small insular community of people. And it doesn't inherently mean it's a bad thing, although I think in the video game world it has shown itself to be a bad thing because of the specific people that have been allowed to become the elite in video game journalism. And so it does, in my mind, make a lot of doesn't make a lot of sense that Jason Schreier is working for Bloomberg. It doesn't, and I don't know if that means my opinion of Bloomberg is too high, or my opinion of Jason Schreier is too low, or if there's some truth in the middle there.
Come, you shall know the dance of death.
But there is also problems, like CNN's website is a great example of all kinds of garbage gets put on CNN.com, whereas the cable CNN show would never repeat or have any endorsement of what's put on the website. So the name and the brand is confused, and at the end of the day, the brand of a corporation really shouldn't matter at all or have any weight put behind it. Like, CNN as a corporation should have no credibility. The editors, the writers, the researchers are the people that should have credibility, or lack therefore of. But that's not how they want to do things. Of course, they want to have the brand seem like has authority and credibility when really it shouldn't, and it often doesn't, depending on your personal opinion. Let's see. Moving on, Gamatsu has Assassin's Creed Valhalla. The release date has been moved up to November 10th for Xbox Series, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PC, and Stadia. So everything is getting sped up for Assassin's Creed Valhalla. That's interesting, certainly, because there hasn't really been any other games that have moved up their release date, and very rarely do games move up their release date. Like, it feels like they're moving up Assassin's Creed Valhalla to potentially turn around and move it back down. I'm wondering if the decks that these AI challenges are using have been changed, because I don't recall seeing war dogs. And see, you can kind of see the problem here of trying to beat these challenges, and why I was skipping a lot of them is because when I was covering the story, like you can go an hour and a half and not accomplish anything at all, even on the pre-built decks. And if I use my own personal decks that are like, I often don't feel like I have the cards to build a deck that could defeat this guy's strategy, which I don't even know what this guy's strategy really is. So it is kind of just the blind leading the blind. It would be a lot nicer if this at some point had a button where I could click on this guy and he could show me his deck, and I could say, alright, I know what card he's playing. I can build a deck against this, instead of potentially having to go to some website that maybe there's a website out there that would tell you the exact deck to build or the exact cards he's going to play. 3 damage to your leader, 6 damage to your leader. Let's go ahead and start with this one.
See my
And then do
power.
that. I really have done nothing to play the Assassin's Creed series after Assassin's Creed 2 and Revelations and Brotherhood, and I don't know if I really want to go through the effort of doing anything more, because with Assassin's Creed, because Assassin's Creed 3, they have this remastered version. They didn't give me a reason to really buy the remastered version. I think the remastered version actually is possibly worse than the original version. Of course, if I did power through 3 and we just have a short run experience there, I could then move to the Assassin's Creed games I haven't played, which pretty much means just playing Black Flag and maybe some of the spin-off games that I want to play, and then being very, very disappointed in a lot of the other Assassin's Creed games that came out.
Do not lose hope. Do not falter.
See, it would have been better than going to TechRaptor's website just to have looked directly at the Xbox Series X page. So here you can see the build of the Series X. There's a big fan at the top. It's a very vertical design. Over here, either that is a cooler, and there's just airflow behind it. So the fan is sucking the hot air out, or blowing cold air in, and then the exhaust at the bottom. I think the blow would actually make more sense in the vertical design, so it would blow air downward and dust away from the base. And then there's one board, and then over here is another board, but whatever is on this board doesn't directly need to connect to the memory and the GPU and CPU, which is all here. So this is probably some like custom power supply, but I bet this is a custom power supply, and I don't know where even the disk launcher goes. Is Vengeance activated for me? Do that. And then that.
Damage sustained.
And we've lost. Let's see. Seems like this might be what a memory card connects. There's a lot of pictures here, a lot of highlighting the sellability. Big heatsink chassis with a vapor chamber, whisper quiet fan, and then you have that at the top. And then here's the little memory cards that are, I assume, are something just like NVMe type cards. But what you're not seeing here is a breakdown of the new Series S. And the controller has like one extra button, and that's it, but little tweaks. Alright, so none of those worked. And none of the rotation cards work. So my unlimited deck would be my last hope on getting this battle done. And then here is the Series S version of that in comparison. You can see, assuming everything is the scale, that it is not the thickness of two controllers side by side. This might be a heatsink exhaust and not really a fan port, because it does kind of look like there is a slot at the top, but frankly you'd have to have 2 or 3 very small fans at the top there to be the equivalent of the one big square fan in the previous in the Series X, because yeah, fans have to be square because circles have to fit inside the square. And you can see here there's just no breakdown. There's a video here I could click and we could see what that looks. That's going to show me, but I don't think it's going to be a breakdown of any of the components. No, it's really just highlighting the smallness and the sleekness of it, and it is a small, sleek design, I'll give it that. Although I think this is something that this is definitely something nobody would ever think about other than a computer builder, but there has been this micro ATX, mini ATX design standard for making computers for a long time, and you can get micro and mini ATX cases, but I don't think it's worth the extra price of squeezing things smaller, the extra risk and danger of things overheating, and packaging things smaller. So I've never really in my mind been able to find a scenario where it makes sense to tell somebody you should build a micro ATX or you should build a mini ATX when you can make a ATX, take an ATX motherboard, put it in a relatively small ATX computer case, and just have better cable routing, a better cable routing, and just more room, more places where you can get your fingers in there and screw down the screws and just have more airflow, more opportunities to potentially put in more than like one M2 memory SSD, or put in a regular hard drive. We are in this weird position where it still doesn't really make sense to have a computer with just 500 gigabytes or a terabyte of an M2 slot, because you need backups, and people forget about that, and so you're going to need at least like a 4 terabyte hard drive. I think that's fairly obvious, and that's something people don't think about. when you start getting to, I believe, the micro ATX, you're not even using standard power supplies at that point, and there's just a lot of weirdness there. There is a growing thought also, well, I don't know if it's growing or not, but there is a thought out there to move away from supplying any varied voltages directly from a power supply and only putting, I believe, 12 volts positive and 12 volts negative, which could be combined to 24 volts, into a motherboard, and then having the motherboard then act as the transformer in the power supply for anything that would need 5 volts, 3 volts, 1.5 volts. There is certainly some lower voltages in the internals of motherboards that you could underpower and underclock that way. And I don't know if I want to open up the door to having to change a whole motherboard just because a power supply goes out. Although, for a lot of people, maybe power supplies go out about as much as a motherboard should be replaced.
You lousy seat.
Well, it seems like I'm actually managing to succeed here. Gamma Sutra has a blog here, Bending Cogmind's Ambient Soundscape. Never heard of Cogmind, and it does seem like it is a very pixely ASCII graphics type game. So this probably is just an advertisement for a rogue clone. But I figured I mentioned it regardless of whether I should have or not. So, Drain Storm.
Hey, I get really angry. Fight 'em real good.
Witness the power.
You have to do what I say. You are a
Here we go.
Lovely day for a fight.
Terminating hostile life form.
Is that the best you can do? A weak performance.
I guess I forgot to mention in the accountability section, I almost won there. Way closer to a victory there than any of the pre-built decks. That I did spend several more hours trying to get my server to encrypt end-to-end encryptions on the emails, and I found like a new system that was going to use Perl and set up a whole new Perl database and created a database table and everything, just following the instructions. And then at the end of it, after several hours of trying to get it to work, it really just seemed to turn out that the software versions have been updated and something doesn't work now, which is just ridiculous that it wouldn't be doable. But yeah, it is just crashing. I was trying using a new module via Perl called GPG which is GPG is the encryption software, and it's just not happening. And so I need a better tutorial that's more modern, and that still seems to be a problem. Yeah, unfortunately that does happen, particularly in Linux, is that things tend to move fast, not super fast, but fast enough that if there is a small project that has been solved for most people, because yeah, I could go to Chrome in Linux and use Enigma Mail and encrypt emails that way to end-to-end encryption. What I'm trying to get is the server logs that I've set up to email me to be encrypted, instead of having potentially sensitive information about the health of the server arrive in an unencrypted format. But getting something to work with postfix, which seems to be a slightly unsupported, undersupported and underused software in itself, is what's becoming the sticking point. Because I've now tried 2 different times with 2 different tutorials and solutions, and I've tried to run it and get it to work myself, just with my own code, and postfix is just not really wanting to accept it. So that was a failed waste of time. But it does certainly go to mention, it's worth mentioning to say, yeah, I'm once again distracting myself and not getting around to playing Battleship Brigade or scheduling videos.
I'll show you something nice.
I'm frankly a little surprised more people on YouTube don't complain about scheduling videos, but then I guess also there's a decent number of people there's a decent number of people, I think, on the side of YouTube that only upload 1 video a day, and thus scheduling is not as much of an effort. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article, Lords of the Fallen 2 returns under a new CL Game Studio Hexworks. We may have already talked about this, but we'll mention it again. And let's see, we also need to win 2 ranked matches. I'm going to give this one more try, and then I'm going to just play regular ranked matches. I had a private match mission. I re-rolled that. Going forward, playing private matches are things that I'm going to re-roll until more people friend me on Shadowverse and are like consistently playing on Shadowverse. At that point, I might start hitting up fans to say, hey, I've got a private match. Because it is just a little too much of a hassle to try and get private matches on Shadowverse to work. Like in Hearthstone, you would get the reward of playing a friend for like 100 gold once in a blue moon, and you would get a significant amount of gold for doing it, whereas doing a private match in Shadowverse is not as significant, I think.
This is my home. You are my food.
Damage sustained.
There we go. We have a game on Steam here called Stones of the Revenant, which looks like it is a platformer with maybe some RPG storytelling going on. Let's see. Retro arcade style platformer with 6 unique playable characters. Requires a controller to play. It's discounted to $6.99. It's English only. I think that looks good enough to be on the fall list. Like, this does look like a game. Perhaps a take on a game from the late 80s, early 90s, and maybe platformers don't have the fan base they once did. But I'm not hating it for what I'm seeing. Let's put that in the field.
For now.
And Vengeance won't activate. Evolved won't activate. That won't activate anytime soon.
Damage sustained. Damage sustained.
Let's see.
Damage sustained.
Next we have a game on Steam called Z-Ball 2, and I think you can see by the first little appearance that it is a low effort ball pub. It's like a physics low effort game for $1.19. English only, 8 achievements, nothing there that even deserves that much coverage. Right. Evolve this.
You will soon learn. Powerless no more.
And then we can do that.
So many souls.
And then we can do that. We can do that. And we have 18, so do we want to do 4 more damage? Or do we want to try and save our skin? I think doing that is smart.
Troublemaker.
And 8, 9, 10.
Damage sustained.
What a cruel.
Do not falter.
Let's see. Next, we have a game on Steam called The Last Bug,
Makes the world go round.
which says it's a turn-based strategy game
Show some respect, peasant.
with like a hex grid movement.
Tough crowd.
They're saying it's a turn-based battle royale game. It seems like an odd combination of gameplay mechanics, and sure, a lot of this looks like it might be just Unity store asset flips, but there's enough unique polish here to make it look like a real game. It's early access for $11.99. It's English and Thai. I'll put that on the follow list, and we'll see that. We'll see what happens there.
Stay out of my axis reach.
Okay. Evolve this
Weakness
more.
the power. I'm gonna knock you out of this world. Nice and heavy. You
Get rid
lousy
of that
cheat.
guy.
You harm the hero at your
Proceeding
service.
to final stage.
This axe is proof of a hero.
This next game is Tag Nudity.
I surrender.
I'm trying to see if it's YouTube family friendly. I kind of say no. We have a game here, and I think what I'll do is I'll just quickly flash it here. It's called Cross Princess. I think one of these characters is probably either a hermaphrodite or a crossdresser. That's, I think, the idea, because the exact next screenshot is showing the character on the left, it looks like, with having no being topless, having no nipples at all, which either that's censorship or that's an odd birth defect, because both genders have nipples.
I can devour your dreams.
So it is, again, tag nudity, but English is not supported. It's $2.24 in a simplified Chinese, which I kind of have to say good on the Chinese for that one, because I don't think homosexuality is fully embraced in China. It's probably well, I don't know. I don't know what the real state of how people who are homosexuals are treated. Yeah, and I've lost again. Let's just take the damage out of spite
Damage sustained.
and see what we can do.
A weak performance.
You don't have a lot of hermaphrodite / cross-dressing games / visual novels, which I assume this is a visual novel. Yeah, it is in general. So yeah, you can kind of see why I've been having some trouble. And see, wow, it's even, this one is being marked as maintenance. So with like an Asian number here, or symbol, I don't even know what that means. And I've been seeing that there have been things being done and being labeled as under maintenance. They are, I think, secretly going through here and not really telling people that they're making changes to these previous challenges to either make them easier or harder. I imagine they're making them easier. But yeah, I guess Grand Prix winning decks would be an interesting idea. Could I perhaps copy this deck? Let's see, what cards are missing? A lot. So, yeah. Could I copy any deck anywhere? And this is probably the best way, where you would say, hey, I need 46,000 vials to craft this deck, and I only have 5,000. So you really are getting a decent scale as far as these are the cards that you don't have, these are the things that you would need. A lot of them are just like 3 copies of legendary cards too. And these are unlimited cards decks too, so we kind of know, as far as our unlimited collection, there's a lot missing there. Yeah. But on the other hand, I would say it's kind of nice to see that the game does not end. The meta of Shadowverse does not end fairly abruptly. There is high level play out there to be played if you have the cards. And this tournament that is currently happening is not an unlimited tournament, but a rotation tournament. So the odds of these winning decks, well, getting these is probably a little bit higher. Although it does seem like, generally speaking, there's not much of a difference for me at the moment. There is some higher number of cards that I do have, and maybe if I looked at other seasons, I might have a higher chance there. Unfortunately, I really haven't gotten around to building a newer set of rotation decks to show off, and that's once again just having time and energy to do things is consistently being a problem, and having the desire to spend any time and energy that I have on doing extra things for the collectible card game is consistently a problem.
Judgment will rain down upon
and I
you.
think this is probably true for most streamers. Like, they probably would be better suited to having a single account spread out amongst 2 or 3 different people, and just handing over gameplay when you're not streaming over to a secondary editor and say, hey, just play this game, just keep it going, just try and get some victories. Moving on, Komatsu has the Famitsu review scores. There's actually a lot of games that came out this week. Let's see, Atomic Crops got 32. Bilshana Senkai Genpai Hika Mushu, never heard of it, 33. Drink More Glorp, 27. Fight and Rage, 31. Gleamlight, 26, so that's particularly bad. Lost Dragon, 27, that's particularly bad. No Straight Roads got 31. PGA Tour got 32. Pro Yaku Famitsu Mista 2020 got 33, and Ultra Hat Dimension got 29. A lot of very Japanese games released this week. No real Western competition, which is slightly interesting. Let's see. Komatsu has a game called Kiki Kai Kai Nazo no Coromantal sequel, which will be called Kiki Kai Kai Coromantal no Nazo instead of no Kuro. So it's Kiki Kai Kai is the name of the person, kind of a made up name, and then Nazo the Kuro is probably, this is probably the name of the series, this is probably the name of the person, and then Kuro Mantle, yeah, translating all that's a hassle. I'm just gonna meander off of that attempt at translating more of that.
Hey, how's everyone doing tonight?
But at the looks of it, it does look like a very Japanese game. It seems. The original game was a Super Nintendo shoot 'em up game. It was known as Pokey and Rocky in the West. Okay. For Super Nintendo Entertainment. I heard someone talking about like the Sega Genesis versus the NES and the Super Nintendo. And it really is still very surprising how some people have kind of just a complete opposite opinion versus other people as far as who won the battle versus Nintendo and Sega Genesis. When to me it seems fairly obvious, since Nintendo is still in the business of making consoles and selling lots of games and licensing games, that Nintendo won that battle, and the Sega Genesis Master System, all of that got beaten by the Sony PlayStation. So I don't know how I can ever make an argument that the death and the end of the Dreamcast was the death and the end of any claim to success as far as Sega and their console ambitions. And they make occasionally good games, but even now they're not making tons of games. And Sega is kind of notorious for making fairly bad games too, particularly in their mainstream titles of like the Sonic series.
You are done for.
Your cavalry has arrived.
Moving on, we have the Rule of Land Pioneers, which seems like it's a side-scrolling kind of hunting game. Let's see, they're tagging it as a resource management game. It's early access for $9.89. It's English and Chinese. I don't even know if I'd want to call this a low-effort Chinese game, and if this is like the new standard of low-effort Chinese games, then that's great, because then Chinese games are starting to be a little bit more polished. But it does seem like it is very much too much of a resource management, too many screens, too much text for something that I think I'd be interested in playing. This, and this, and evolve here,
Shall pay for defiling the sky.
and attack that. See, next we have a game on Steam called Chicken Madness, which is already tagged as mixed. Looks like it's a local multiplayer, player versus player, chickens versus chicken game, kind of like Mario Kart, a Mario Party with the battles. I need a better way to describe those types of games. $14.99 is too expensive, English only. And you can see that they are just trying to promote this with live streamers' videos. Is there any online player versus player? Nope. So, yeah, Chicken Madness doesn't look particularly interesting. And then you run into a weird situation there where Chicken Madness is not the worst title for a game, so if 10 years down the line somebody else tries to make a game called Chicken Madness, there will be problems with getting a trademark, copyright, or just not having name confusion around that. On the other hand, Chicken Madness is not that great of a name that you can't find something better. This would be Storm for 4 damage if I evolve
Now,
it.
if you would please look to your right.
Away with you, trespasser!
There's a right and wrong. Any questions?
Hit that. And then crystallize and do that. Do that. Can this... Can he clear the board or do 7 damage in the next part? Major Nelson has the Suicide of Rachel Foster out for Xbox One. This feels like a Vanishing of Ethan Carter type game. And boy, when you look at it, a retainer looks like a nasty piece of hardware. I feel like this is a game that's been on PC, but I want to do some research there. Although, on the other hand, can I even cover a game with suicide in the name on YouTube, or does it get flagged? YouTube seems to be flagging a decent amount of stuff that it probably shouldn't be flagging these days. So I would not be surprised if something like that could be a pain. And so I probably would just call it Rachel Foster in the titles. And that is kind of the ridiculous censorship world that we live under as a YouTube content creator. Of course, you didn't also play a game like that. You hope that they touch sensitive material seriously and that they're not going to make a joke of it. Alright. Play this. And what can we do now? See, we hit this, or we just hit this and we lose. I mean, we're pretty much losing no matter what. So I hit that. And then put that on the field. And then just hit that. And hit that. And that. Next, we have a game on Steam called World Process, which looks like a very low effort Chinese management game. Yeah. English not supported, $4.19 Chinese, yes. So, nothing really to say there. And I'm still just bouncing between C2 and C1 as far as the ranking. I've pretty much lost any ability to make great strides at this any higher. And at a certain point I kind of understand that too. Like, my decks are not at a quality that they should be making it up to rank B or A. But it also kind of points out that there is a investment in both time and gold, whether you get that as a free-to-play or whether you pay real money to have the cards to actually be able to win. It may very well be that one of my biggest winners, the Forestcraft deck, could get me up to a rank B, but I would have to potentially do it on the percentages, so much so that it wouldn't really be worth it. Gamatsu has an article here. Dinsha Dego Hashiru Rou Yamanate Sen has been announced for PS4 and Switch. I mispronounced, I think, almost all of that. This seems to be a train operator simulator. I'm not sure if this is one of those ones though where it gets crazy and the trains can jump tracks and things like that, or if this is just a straight depiction of being a simulation of running the trains. There is yeah, there's a lot of overlay and heads-up display on it to control the knobs and dials of the train. I was gonna say there's a big difference in the amount of interest in trains, I think, based on whether or not you're in a country that deals with trains and uses trains. I would say people in the United States, depending what state and what city you live in the United States, you're going to have zero interest in trains or zero interaction with trains. There's a few places where you will have some have a high chance of interaction with trains, but if you're in the UK, you're almost certainly going to have some interaction with trains, and if you're in Japan, you're almost certainly going to have that same kind of interaction. Next, we have a game on Steam here called Capital Simulator, which looks like a low-effort stock market simulator, for lack of a better term. $5.09. Bunch of languages. I could venture a guess it's a Chinese game, but it might be, who knows, anything. It supports a bunch of them. There. Next we have Sperm Dash with a bunch of Asian characters after it. We had seen a game somewhat similar to this before, where you were playing as a sperm, kind of Mario Kart racing or just racing in general. The last one I saw on this was seemingly not anatomically correct at all as far as the uterus walls. This one seems to not have that problem, but also I don't know how much of a game you really can have around this idea. It right now has only a soundtrack available, and it's English and Chinese, which is weird. It makes me wonder if this game has already been taken down by Steam. If it is being taken down by Steam, that's kind of a weird censorship line to go around.
Can you keep me company?
I don't know if I would fully agree with something like that. There also seems to be some condoms you can buy, which I don't know why you would be buying condoms if you're playing as the sperm trying to ovulate an egg. Let's see. That would be an odd line to cross. Yeah, that would be a very odd line to cross for Steam to say, hey, let's not have Sperm Dash in it, when I just am checking right now, Radiator 2, which is free, Anniversary Edition, is still purchasable on Steam. Radiator 2 being a collection of gay games that I think are just kind of gay troll games that are just trying to fetishize and other gay people in a weird way. And it is a weird game that feels like it's on the face of it looks like it's trying to be pro LGBT, well, at least pro gay men, but at a deeper level it kind of feels like it's trying to, in a very negative way, parody them. Kind of in the same way that there is a lot of danger in like the gay pride events, that they often act as a argument to people who aren't pro LGBT community, to say, look at those freaks, look how weird they are, look how much they aren't like you. Where, so, you know, that it's destroying or at least not creating common ground and common understanding when there is common ground and understanding, I think, to be had there. Moving on, since that would get into a very long argument if one wanted to, we have a game here called Arcanion Tale of the Magi, which looks like it is kind of like a Game Boy looking platformer here. I don't know how many of these Game Boy platforming type games I would want to play. Like, I've been willing to do it with the Shantae series, knowing that the Shantae series has gone to a more modern gameplay style, and they're still making it. Whereas this looks like an NES game, maybe a Game Boy Color game, and I'm not sure if there's anything more to it there. It's $14.39. They're comparing it to Cuphead and Shovel Knight. It's English only. I'm gonna put this on the fall list, but it almost certainly will fall off the fall list as soon as it gets any reviews, if it gets any reviews, which is also, I guess, a big if. Alright. Attack or defense has been raised. Can we do that? Nope. I'm not paying enough attention, so I'm moving so slow. I guess I kind of buried the lead here too. This was probably just as big news as the pricing for the Xbox Series S and X. Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity has been announced for Switch. Now, this being labeled Hyrule Warriors does not make it seem like it's a Zelda game. It makes it feel like it is a Warriors game. Yeah, players will fight through droves of enemies as Link, Zelda, and the 4 champions of Hyrule, Mipha, Ravala, Derek, and Urbosa, characters that were only introduced in Breath of the Wild, as far as I know. So this is going to be set, I believe, 1,000 years before the events of Breath of the Wild, which I don't know how at that point you play as Zelda or Link. But maybe you could play as Zelda, maybe you can't play as Link, or at least storyline wise it wouldn't make sense. Let's see, Shadowcraft 2. I want to play. So, yeah. There was a lot of confusion in my mind about that game, actually. I thought it was a actual sequel to Zelda, which seemed a little premature, certainly, but I wouldn't have been surprised. Like, I really am not going to be surprised if there is a new mainstream Mario game, like Mario Odyssey 2 comes out, and a new Breath of the Wild 2 comes out before they ever get the Metroid Prime 4 to come out. Because that game does seem to like it's just severely delayed. Next we have a game on Steam here called Jack Hayes The Lazarus Sign, which is tag nudity and sexual content. Interesting. I did not see that. Well, it looks like an RPG Maker game, and the title makes it feel like it would be a point-and-click adventure. It's $5.99 English full audio. I just don't think there's enough visual polish here, though, to put this on the fall list. It does just look like an RPG Maker game that is using a different artistic style. This screenshot in particular is particularly bad visually looking.
Stay away. No!
Use the word particular too often there. Let's see, where's my mouse cursor? Monster Boy in the Cursed Kingdom is coming to the PS5 and Xbox Series. Which, okay. I would like to catch up and play the Monster Boy games, at least the modern ones. But yeah, unless the Black Friday sale really is great this year for Steam, I don't see how that's going to end up being a high priority. And at a certain point, I almost want to admit to myself and realize that I've been fairly bad about spending money to get things that I really wanted to play, like my top priority games. A lot of those have turned out to be duds. More than 50% of them have felt like they've been duds, and that's an extra expense certainly that wouldn't have been there had I not chosen to go out of order and buy something that I was hyped about. Where I could have simply just bought older games, and it feels a lot better to play an old game and go, yeah, this is an old game, but I paid $1.99 for it, versus, oh, this is a 2 or 3 year old game, but I paid $15 for it, and it turned out to be a flop. Battleship Brigade is kind of a great example of that. Just really really disappointing game for the way it felt like it was.
Hey, let's play.
Well, I can evolve this, I suppose,
Hunt has only begun.
and do that, and put that there. Gamma Sutra has an article here, a postmortem on Deck 13's Interactive's Lords of the Fallen, which honestly it feels like if Gamma Sutra is doing postmortems on games, they're still trying to
Fly with your heart, not your wings.
advertise and promote games,
Verifying access.
because, well, I guess in the video game industry in particular, doing postmortems probably aren't very helpful.
Activated.
Let's see. Tech Raptor is promoting a new Taco game. Kira Star's Idle Project AI lets you conquer the pop world. And so, yeah. Nutaku's still putting out 2 or 3 games every month that seem to be kind of forgotten and abandoned fairly quickly.
Hey, let's play.
At least that's how it feels like in my experience so far playing college days. So after that one big event that ended up costing me, making me spend thousands and thousands of the premium currency, which I cheated to get and did not spend real money on. Thank goodness. There has been absolutely no other events.
Let's hope for the rainbow's end.
So I think they knew that they had made that event unrealistic and that they asked too much.
The real battle begins.
Gamma Sutra has an article here. Apple is now seeking damages from Epic Games over breach of contract. It'll be interesting to see how Apple can prove damages, but it might not be impossible. If anybody's gonna have the lawyers to prove damages, it would be Apple. Whereas I'd say seeking damages is gonna be really, really hard for any other company.
No!
I guess what Apple could get for damages is they could subpoena Epic for all the sales that they did that bypassed the 30% revenue cut, and they could seek actual damages of the 30% of all sales that bypassed the 30% revenue cut, and then they could seek punitive damages or punitive other fees on top of that. So yeah, they might get a relatively small amount of money out of Epic for every sale that went through.
The sound of my faith shattering.
But all of that will have to center around
The power of nature.
how impressed the judge is with Apple's contract with Epic, and whether the judge feels like enforcing that contract or not. TechCorrupt has an article here. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2 charity DLC benefits veterans. 100% of the proceeds go to the Call of Duty endowment, which frankly the endowment needs to change its name. Otherwise it's going to feel like it is completely always built around Call of Duty the game. This is 100% of proceeds from the United Pack, which gives you an United t-shirt, pants, wheel set, hat, beanie, tie-dye, camo skateboard set, and traditional camo skateboard set. And certainly it's kind of weird. Like, I imagine there's a decent number of skaters that are in the military. But then there's always this weirdness of supporting veterans and supporting people who basically sacrificed, possibly even ruined their lives by joining the military, while many people don't want to actually support the military itself and the actions it's taken in the past.
Figure it
The
out.
power of nature.
And at a certain level, people don't want to admit that
Why are you here?
you can't just classify every single military person as just following orders and being incapable of manifesting their own destiny, and you have to actually admit that, yeah, they started going in the military knowing that they would be asked to do things that many people consider unethical, and they joined out of desperation or out of ambivalence anyways. So at a certain point it is justifiable from both perspectives, I think, to not want to support the troops,
I have lost.
and it is understandable from some people's perspectives why they do want to support the troops. And I don't think the video game industry is united on one opinion
Looks like I won.
versus another. We've got a win streak bonus going, so let's just keep on playing. Although my only daily quest right now is still to get the daily main story solo games done. TechRaptor also has this Ray Lil Black event coming to Nutaku's Heavy Metal Babes. And yeah, you can see that is yet another adult game that Nutaku is getting paid to promote. Gamasutra has an interesting blog question here. Can influencer branded game stores work? Which, like,
My quarry won't escape that easy.
is an interesting thought.
Activate. Enhance. Fire.
That maybe somebody like PewDiePie would have a list of games they endorse and like. Although on Steam that has yet to really work in any way, because it's just so much work, and without any kind of kickback for a influencer to endorse and have a sponsored link, there really is no reason to maintain a list like that. And I have seen definitely some YouTubers that have sponsored links to Amazon.com and other sites, if there are other sites still that sell things. But I haven't heard of anybody really making a ton of money from that. They probably are getting pennies here and there, relatively speaking. And it definitely goes to show why YouTube is as bad as it is, as far as being flooded with advertisements, is because you can't make a living, frankly, as without advertisement on a lot of websites. There is possibly an alternate universe out there, right, where a post-scarcity society existed before the internet was created. Like, if you can imagine a world like that, I could definitely see the internet have a very different twist on it. There definitely was a point in the very early days of the internet where everything was intentionally supposed to be free. It was just supposed to be information is free. There was not really any influence on as far as showing a lot of ads or selling a lot of products over the internet. People were definitely very scared of buying things online. That has since completely been washed away, or at least mostly been washed away. I imagine there's still a few people that are scared of doing that.
Why are you here?
Just don't.
And yeah, there is potentially a future in this reality where we become post-scarcity and people just do things on the internet as their passion piece and as their art piece, and that would be a very interesting scenario to also happen, because I suspect you would see a lot of streamers stop streaming at that point, because there is a lot of what I would argue bad motivation behind a lot of streamers to become financially successful, whereas there are also a lot of people that are motivated to be popular, and that motivation probably wouldn't go away.
Stop.
Let's see, hit this, and then we'll evolve this,
The hunt has only begun.
and then we'll hit that. Moving on, TechRaptor has this article: Madden NFL 21 brings back Colin Kaepernick. Now, was Colin Kaepernick removed in NFL 20 because he wasn't signed on? Or was he removed because he was the one that started the whole kneeling motion? I would say from the outside, not really following football, I think Colin Kaepernick is probably one of the smartest football professionals ever. In the sense that he saw his career was going nowhere, and this is a cynical thing to say, but I think this is probably true. I think he saw that his career was stagnating, and he wasn't going to be first pick at the draft or anything like that. And so I don't think it really was 100% a case that he sacrificed a promising young career to make a political statement and start a movement. I think he saw that he had a probably medium career in the NFL, or he could start a political movement, not have to work so hard in the NFL, maybe not get signed at all. He has, I think, a lawsuit against the NFL for being blacklisted, which he almost certainly was. And, like, he didn't have to potentially risk injury, which the risk of injury in the NFL is very high.
Don't you like me?
So, but this is from my perspective, from somebody who does not like nor follow football. Let's see. He's been away from the NFL since 2017, and there have even been previous controversies. And so they have this whole statement in the picture format here. So yeah, as a free agent, I guess he could come back. I bet he was probably cheap to get his likeness too. I bet he was more than happy to say, hey, for a few $1,000s, I'll be in your video game. Okay, can we get to where we need to be with this? If I do this, I'll just get 2. If I do this, I'll just get 2, so I should just do that. And then the turn. On a bigger scale, I don't think too many people care, though. Or should care, at least. Maybe people will care. But Madden NFL 2021 is just yet another Madden game that I don't think people should play. And there's kind of a sad situation, certainly, for people who do want to play football games on consoles or PC, in the fact that there really is not a good offering, and there may not have been a good offering for quite a long time. Like, I don't know if the last good Madden game was last year, or 10 years ago, or 20 years ago. Like, if I was going to play a football game, I'd play NES football. So you're talking like 30 years ago. There probably was one good Madden that is reasonable. I'm not sure if any of the Madden games are on PC at all. That's another thing to contend with. Do that. And that. And then hit that. And then hit that. And do that. Next we have a game on Steam called Living the Nightmare, which looks like a hex grid strategy placement game. Problem here is there's just way too much on the screen, and that doesn't make it feel like a cell phone game, it just makes it feel like a badly designed game. They're calling it a traditional roguelike, which is weird. Survival horror. It's $7.19, English Philanu. I kind of want to put this on the follow list just to see if people somehow found a way to like this game. But at the core of it, I just don't think there's a game here. I think there's just a lot of copying and pasting of heads-up displays and elements. There's way too much going on. Let's see, 5 damage there. 6 there. There's no reason to do that. And do that.
Let's play.
And that. And the turn. Actually didn't need to attack with this guy. I could have saved a health. Actually, I could win pretty much at any point here if I can just play 2 cards. So playing this and then getting Fairy Wisp.
Taking the shot.
You're through.
TechCraft has an article here. PUBG Core retakes control of PUBG Mobile in India. PUBG Mobile 1.0 update debuts. This is, I think, specifically because PUBG was banned, or the Tencent, NetEase, whatever, Chinese version of PUBG was banned in India, I'm sure, and they did not want to, didn't want to really lose out on sales there. So in a weird way, they kind of got what they wanted. Okay, rush, play this, do this. We should do this,
Forest be at peace.
then we should do this,
Leave this to me, fairy friends.
and then we should do this,
Let's play.
and then we should do that.
Let's play.
I'll
That
take care of
can't
them.
attack there in turn. Did that not do 2 damage? I thought I had already applied the effect that when you do more than
Retreat.
3 cards, it does 2 damage to the hero, but apparently I haven't done that. And see, I can see the beginning of the end, and that is,
Stop it.
it's been a somewhat long stream by the new standard. I would say by the old standard, we're still doing fairly well.
These gears still
Okay.
turn.
And then this, this,
Play.
this,
Play. Let's play.
and then just do that.
Hear the voices of the wind.
See, here we have a game on Steam called My First Date RPG presented by ExecuteCode.com, which this is the second game I've seen that has put a .com as their developer, and I think Steam should probably say no to that because that makes this look like a link that will take you to Execute.com. It also means when What's on Steam on Twitter puts ExecuteCode.com as the title in a tweet, it then automatically makes it a hyperlink to that website. This is 99 cents, English only. You can see it's a fairly low effort item too. Okay.
Spirit, everything decays.
Just in the turn there. There's no reason to attack. Next we have a game on Steam here that's called Sleep, which looks like it's probably a Unity asset flip horror game if any of these screenshots want to load. It's $6.99, English and Russian. So yeah. Looks like a Russian asset flip horror game to me. Nothing particularly consistent in the visuals or interesting in the visuals. Okay. Do that.
Spider can go the distance.
And then let's just do 3 damage there. And do that. And then do that. It took a lot of work to get that victory, but we still are having a win streak, so there's
Looks like I won.
no reason not to keep playing. Keep getting that win streak bonus. Particularly since we don't have any missions other than the single player missions anyways, and I may just end up having to give up and re-roll those. But there's not a good argument to do that. TechRaptor has this article: Cyberpunk 2077 Rockstar Energy cans give players exclusive rewards. And see, this is interesting because I'm wondering if there will be so much snarky like hate for this promotion because of Cyberpunk 2077 versus the instances in which we've seen Monster Energy cans give you items for Halo in the previous Halo releases. It also is interesting to see that they're going with Rockstar instead of Monster Energy. You get apparently a $1 gift card per each can, limited up to $60. Okay, well, I guess buy Rockstar Energy drink if you're super hyped on exclusives that probably don't matter. In a weird way, this is going in an odd direction for CD Projekt Red, considering how much free stuff they just gave out to people who had pre-ordered or gotten The Witcher 3. It seems a little bit greedier, although a lot of that free stuff also was contingent on getting The Witcher 3 on Good Old Games, the website that they support. And I would say CD Projekt Red has kind of failed to do anything amazingly new with Good Old Games in the past 6 months or so. In the past year, there have been a couple of like big name announcements of old games coming back and being playable, but they haven't done that in a while, and they haven't gotten any press otherwise. They haven't done anything bad either, so they're still doing a much better job than the Epic Store. If anything, the Epic Store has allowed Good Old Games to just stay silent and not announce anything, and I guess maybe that is to their benefit.
Hey, let's play. Let's play.
Next, we have a TechRaptor article. Belgian folklore-inspired RPG Black Legend launches next year. Which, okay, there's an advertisement for a game that's not launching for a whole year from TechRaptor, and not really useful information and other than that. Let's see.
Corpses.
Hey, let's play.
Let's see
The
here.
hunt has only begun.
I'm so sparkly. Yeah.
Gamatsu has an article here. Watch Dogs Legion for Xbox Series launches November 10th. I think particularly Xbox Watch Dogs Legion, if I can get the name right, Watch Dogs Legion needs to release as quickly as possible, because its story is probably not going to have aged particularly well with all that has changed in the world, and I don't think that the game itself was well suited to ever be that interesting of a game in the first place.
I won't let you get away.
So they kind of just need to get it out at a good time, get it out quickly, get as much money as they can from it, and get out of the way of whatever next Ubisoft project or whatever next project they have in development, which should be Starlink, but it very well may not be.
Close your lips and
So
live
it probably will be
imperfection.
just the next Assassin's Creed game. Which it does kind of feel like the next Assassin's Creed game and Watch Dogs are being released too close together. Moving on, TechRaptor has an updated article here that NBA 2K21 is getting review bombed. The NBA 2K21 base edition has now returned to Steam in all regions, most explicitly Belgium and Netherlands, where it had been unavailable previously. Valve told TechRaptor the issue was resolved, and we confirmed independently that it is indeed back. Users were review bombing it for lack of differences from the previous year's game, and pretty much that seems to be the main complaint. And that seems like that is just going to keep on happening as far as sports games too. Rightfully so, in my opinion. I think there is just a complete lack of effort on the part of sports developers to do anything and innovate or improve. And if that's the game that they were going to make, they needed to lower the price. It makes sense for them to go to, at the very least, a TikTok system in which you get NBA 2K20 and then there's like a DLC that buffs it up to NBA 2K21 rosters without really changing anything else or putting in any new story mode or anything like that. And then on the third year you come out with NBA 2K 2022, and that's on an improvement of the engine, and there are some differences there. In reality, you probably could go 3, 4, maybe even 5 years before updating the engine or updating anything else. It's not like the transition from HD, from standard definition to HD, happened so fast that by the time you got to HD, people were already up to 2K, and by the time you got to 2K, people were already up to 4K. The transitions as far as graphics and audio has not really been upgraded at all in decades. So, yeah, there isn't the highest of demands to make things look as good as EA often wastes money trying to make things look hyper realistic and good. It is definitely part of a greater disconnect in the sense that the people who are promoting and funding the development of games are hyper focused on the appearance and the realisticness of the visuals of games, where I think if they simply just more lower their price, which is the thing they don't want to do, they don't want to set that precedent, they could probably sell the product at the same level of quality as it is with more satisfaction. And that's the core of it, is that for the price of these sports games, the satisfaction level is going down and down and down with every year and every iteration. Because the price is going up, the amount of shenanigans in the form of in-app purchases and in-app ads are going up, and you're just not getting anything to justify that new cost, or the new cost in the sense of a combined worse experience at the same price. Moving on, we have a game on Steam called Swords and Magic and Stuff, which looks like it's kind of a Minecraft clone. Doesn't inherently eliminate it from consideration though. You can see it's rated positively. It's early access for $19.99, single player only, English full audio. Open world with online co-op, really? Yeah. There might be something to this, but I doubt it. I would have to think really hard about trying to play something that looks so much like a Minecraft clone. I'm gonna break my streak here. if I'm not careful. TechRaptor has an article here. Prime Gaming adds Metal Slug 3 and more SNK games. They seem to be very heavy around the idea of just getting like almost every SNK game available. So they must be really, really cheap to license. But I will say Prime Gaming, which used to be Twitch Gaming, has really dropped the ball as far as being anything of interest. Like there's just not a good offering as far as new games anymore, or as far as small indie games that would have caught people's attention. And that it seems to have just been completely dropped, and now you're getting very old games and you're getting very irrelevant games. Next we have a game on Steam here called Star Renegades, which looks like it is an RPG with some running and some attempt to make it look a lot faster, which speeding up RPGs does make a lot of sense, and it does seem like you're fighting a lot of robots. It's rated very positively, so I'm going to put it on the fall list. It's $22.49, which is rather expensive, even discounted. There's a whole bunch of languages. E for E10+. Yep, this looks like there is an actual game there. See, here's TechRaptor's article. Breath of the Wild prequel, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity announced. So it really was kind of sold like it was a prequel, but it's not. It's a Warriors game. Let's see if we can get anything here before we get content ID by YouTube. Like, yeah, I don't think that's even footage. Yeah, they are advertising that, or at least they originally advertised that, in a fairly deceptive way. Like, it is not really a gameplay style prequel to Breath of the Wild, from what I can tell. What's really crazy, I guess, here is the idea, and here on the quick take you even see it. I don't think Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity is taking the right path by revisiting the Great Calamity. It feels like an insult to players' intelligence to fill in gaps that work perfectly well as draw your own backstory beacons. So yeah, it's weird to integrate the Warriors series closer to the Nintendo-owned games. At a certain point, this opens up the door that Nintendo is just going to purchase the creators of the Warriors series and the license whole cloth to the Warriors series, or the entire company that makes the Warriors series. And I think that's Koei Tecmo, which maybe this is the beginning hint that something like that is going to happen. Moving on, TechRaptor has a review basically for a TV series. Netflix's high school score is all work and no play. Which, let's see if they actually give it a review. I tried to watch the first series, and I couldn't even make it through the first episode because it kind of bounces around, and it was oddly a little SJW, in that one of the contest winners they talk about is like has transitioned, but it really wouldn't have in any way affected. It didn't really affect the story. It just became this thing that was also added. It's like, oh yeah, I'm a female now, and that's why
The whirlwinds will rend you. The
why this female is talking about this male character that won the tournament. Like that kind of just added confusion to the story, frankly.
The quickest silver.
And honestly, if I was gonna have a character that had transitioned that way, I would have, as a director trying to make an interesting documentary, I would have had the female character I would have the female character talk in the third person about her male persona before that point, and I guess I'd effectively asked them to dead name that character in a sorts, not call themselves by the old name, but talk about the other person as if he was his own thing, so that you could have a big reveal at the end to say, actually, I am that person. Because then that would be a shock if you had an hour of that backstory. But again, in a series that's supposed to be talking about video game history, and there's just not a lot of new video game history to talk about, it just kind of got in the way. And then they jumped to a completely different story. So what does Tech Raptor say? Well, partly a nostalgic tribute to video games of old and how they came to be, high school unfortunately focuses more on the business side of things rather than what goes on the inside of the brilliant minds of game creators. Part of the problem, I think, also with doing documentaries about video games and their design is all the people who are old enough to be historically relevant are so old that they just don't remember. It was the 80s. There was a lot of drugs and rock and roll going on. I don't think half the people remember what happened, and I don't think they accurately remember any of it. Let's see, the documentary is at best when it shines a light on the design and development process and less on financial success or public reception. I think that is kind of just the bent of the director. I could see a good documentary talking about the financial success and public reception. I could see good ones that completely ignore that. I think the King of Kong series in particular, though, has kind of established a standard in which we as a general public are most interested in seeing rivalries, seeing basically sports competitions, documentaries happening like that, and like there aren't too many financial historical documentaries out there that have been successful in any field. Like The Wolf of Wall Street probably wouldn't be as good if it was a fictional. I think it is a fictionalization of what happened, but it wouldn't have been as good if it was realistic and it was focused on the actual money side of things. It does its best to masquerade as a celebration of the artistic minds behind history's most beloved games, but ultimately it boils down to revenue and corporate measures as a game's success, is what they say what Tech Raptor thinks about it. I would also throw out there as an idea the concept of doing a documentary that is much more focused on the actual games themselves. Because if you're talking about really old games, the ability to play those old games is fairly prohibitive. So if you're talking about Super Mario Bros. 1, which isn't really that prohibitive of a game, let's open one more pack and get over the 100 mark just to see what happens here. If anything happens, I doubt it will. So if you're talking about Mario Bros. 1 and you say, well, in Mario Bros. 1, you start with 3 lives, you play as Mario, there are 8 worlds, and in each of the 8 worlds there are 3 levels. That's stuff that people probably already know. But if you get footage and show, like, hey, this is what World 3-4 looks like, or like 4-3, not 3-4. There obviously isn't a 3-4. Then there's some new footage there to show off and talk about where. And if they spent a good 20 minutes just describing the games and doing interviews with people that speedrun or play Mario 1 and say, hey, what can you tell me about this level? What can you tell me about this level? Just give me a sentence about this level. Let's get really into the weeds and detailed on that. That's where you could highlight and focus on the games way more. E.T. is kind of a great example of that, where everybody kind of knows that E.T. was a pretty bad game. Very few people know what each screen on E.T. is supposed to represent, because it's hard to tell, and how the game is actually supposed to be played. And that's where, like, speedruns particularly are appealing to me, in the sense that the speedruns, when well commentated, which is a bit of an if there, if the speedruns are well commentated, they turn out to be fairly interesting. What is this one? Herald of Death. Great Fox. Peckish Princess. What have we got new recently? Turncoat Dragon Summoner, which looks like a lot like the dragon guy. Forced Resurrection. Slayus Wheel of Fortune. And nothing else new. And then, who do we want? Like, we're getting down to the point where I just am gonna have a preference here.
This is what I trained for.
Orisa, because she's an anime girl, and that's gonna be the answer to all of these, frankly. It's like, who's the most waifu material here? Isabel.
You'll make a good test subject.
We'll stick with Forte for obvious reasons. I think we'll go back to Luna.
Want to do something together?
Although Luna is far too young to be considered waifu material. We'll stick with Vanilla. We'll change back to Eris for a while.
We draw closer.
And then we'll stick with Nexus. So an all girls team of female, and we have like 86 ranked matches in Forestcraft and 6 of Swordcraft, Runecraft, and 5 of Shadowcraft, 6 of this. You can see there is a major split here between the number of wins and probably the number of efforts I've even put into this. And I've just done nothing in rotation, where clearly I should be jumping between rotation and unlimited to get higher scores. We are in this weird position with the way the monthly missions and score rewards work, in the sense that to get to that 100,000, you basically would have to get 50,000 in ranked and 50,000 in rotation and 50,000 in unlimited. I don't think you're going to be able to get 100,000 in just unlimited. That's asking far too much. Alright, let's just finish the news now. Well, you know what we'll do? We'll come over here. I said I would do this. We'll start a private match. Create a private match of regular, unlimited, create match, single mode. It's a little too many buttons to have to do this. We'll stick with our Forestcraft here. So you'd have to click join a private match and type in that match ID. And if anybody does that before I'm done with the news, then I'll play them. If nobody does that, then we'll be done for today. Meanwhile, Gamasutra has an article here. I think we may have already talked about this. CI Games opens an internal studio, Hexworks, to develop Lords of the Fallen 2. Okay. That's a little bit background news. We have a game on Steam here called Stormblades, which looks so zoomed in that it looks like it's a cell phone game. And it's not like the visuals are amazingly well polished. Let's see, it's $3.99, English only. It seems just like really rough. And it kind of looks like it's an infinite runner. Although in all fairness, an infinite runner with a heavy combat focus isn't the worst idea. This does feel a lot like that Blades game that was available on iPhone, and I don't think it actually is available on iPhones anymore. And this is called Stormblades, and the other one was, I think, called Infinity Blades, so you probably are trying to do some name confusion there. But really not enough polish there for a PC game. Gamatsu has an article. Onichambra Origin is coming to the West for PS4, PC on October 14th. The origin of the ecstasy, the evolution of a legacy. I feel like there should be a comma there. So this is the bikini-clad cowboy hat girl and her companions fighting zombies. I don't even know this character. So it does open up an interesting question, certainly, as far as Onichambra Origin, I think, is a fairly new game. So if you play Origin for Steam, which I assume it's coming to Steam, yeah, it is, on September 24th, then the question really comes down to the question would really come down to, do you, from that perspective, want to go back and play the other single Onichambra game that is on Steam, or do you have to kind of only play Origin and just hope that the rest of the series of games, whichever ones are going to be the new iteration in this release, in these re-releases or releases, because it's kind of like a soft reboot, at least for PC gamers. You might just want to play Origin and maybe play the one other game that's on Steam, but maybe not play that one, and just hope that over the course of the next 3 to 4 years we have several more games that are ported or remakes, soft reboots, remasters of the old games. And then you also run into the problem with the Onichambra series being a hack and slash zombie game. It's fairly stupid and fairly mindless, and you have to know that going into it. Speaking of fairly stupid and fairly mindless, we have a visual novel here called Sunny Shine Funland, which is tagged sexual content as a visual novel, and it is $10.99 with English only. And I'll say the graphics, which I can't really show all of it, or don't want to show all of it because there's just a lot of cleavage in all of them. They're not so polished that I think they would make it on the follow list. This is also from a new company that has only made one other game, Oakwood Academy of Spells and Sorcery, which that is like a Honey Pop clone. That also, the graphics on that don't look amazingly great. Yep. And I just don't think I'm in the market to find yet another company that's making visual novel adult games. Like, there's far too many of them, and I'm, as a video game critic, am not the one to become the critic for those games. At some point, maybe if I had a very large supporter base on Patreon, there might be an argument to doing something like that, but at the current moment, I can't see justifying the time to play a bunch of those to come back and say, well, these are visual novels. And the visual novel part is frankly the bigger speed bump than the adult content part. Like, YouTube will have a problem with the adult content. I will have a problem personally with all the text. Moving on, we have a game called Midnight Scenes Episode 2 Special Edition, which this looks like it is kind of a point-and-click adventure that's episodic. The bundle for both games is $6.28. Says it supports a large amount of languages, but it also says it's only about 30 minutes. So 30 minutes of content for $4 is just an unrealistically expensive game at that point. There's not anything amazing here. What would be interesting, you would never be able to do this because there would be copyright infringement unless you got CBS Interactive's like go ahead. It'd be interesting to make like a point and click adventure game that looked like this, that was reliving all of the stories of the Twilight Zone. Because I was looking here, and yeah, there's if this was there's a monster on the plane type story, you could parody that fairly easily. But if you took all the stories, like the 5 seasons of Twilight Zone, I believe it was, and you had like one hour experience doing a point and click puzzle story of that would be very interesting. You could reintroduce a lot of people in a more interactive way to the old Twilight Zone stories. You would have the general idea of what was happening and what was going to happen. It would be crazy, on the other hand, to try and take like the Twilight Zone movie, or which was an anthology of like 5 stories, but if you're to try to take one single story from any of the Twilight Zone episodes and turn it into a 5 to 10 hour game, it just wouldn't work. But if you kept it simplistic and you kept it cheap, I think you could have an anthology of events, and you could put a little bit of a magic in it and have the same character like quantum leap his way into different events, or have a new character that is reliving these events. And you would have a decent amount of new players potentially that would not know the events of the Twilight Zone stories. Very few people, I think, off the back of their head would be able to tell you the exact events of the lesser known Twilight Zone stories. Excuse me. We need to wrap up because I'm going to start coughing like crazy, wearing out my voice. Yeah, that is happening too, more often than not. Alright, so we have a game on Steam here called Okinoka Madness, which this looks like it is a precision platformer. Is that the new phrase? I guess that is probably as good of a definition as a frustration platformer, which is what I was calling them. These screenshots really don't serve it as much justice as it should, whereas the video shows that there's some major jumping and platforming here going on in a Super Meat Boy style thing, but there's also some boss battles. It's $17.99, bunch of languages. I'm gonna put this on the follow list, but yeah, I probably wouldn't play this game. I just kind of want to see what the reviews are on it. But yeah, it does seem like it is a very, very complicated game. And I've already done footage of things like Super Meat Boy and said, well, yeah, I really can't actually beat this game because it's just too much for my arthritic fingers and thumbs. Gematsu has an article here. Hong Kong distributor lists Ninja Gaiden Trilogy for PS4 and Switch. which, okay, that's believable. It could also not be happening, certainly, but it would not be a terrible idea for them to try and re-release or reboot the Ninja Gaiden series. This would be Ninja Gaiden Sigma, Sigma 2, and 3 Razor's Edge for $39.99. I'm not sure the Ninja Gaiden series isn't another one of those series, though, that is a little bit too frustrating for most players, so I'd have to think about it and look at some gameplay footage. Gamatsu has an article here, Fitness Boxing Shipments and Digital Sales Top 1 Million. So 300,000 copies moved in the last 4 months. Alright, nice. I can definitely see why that would be. Fitness Boxing does look like it's a fine game to try and exercise with your Switch, and certainly a lot of people would have been stuck in their house and need something to help motivate them to exercise. Gamatsu has a article here, Shirin the Wanderer, the Tower of Fortune, and the Dice of Fate for Switch. PC launches December 2nd in the West and December 3rd in Japan, which Shirin the Wanderer, looking at these screenshots, to me looks like it's a JRPG. There might be something more interesting to it than that, but I'm not seeing anything here on the face of it. Next, we have a game on Steam here that's just a bunch of Asian letters, and it looks like a Halloween game. It kind of looks all over the place in the art style. Here you have a chibi kind of low polygon witch character, and then here you have a much more polished knight character, although his sword is ridiculously long. It's tagged as an open world sandbox building game. I think what we've got here is probably an asset flip low effort Chinese game. It's $3.54. It's English and Chinese, full audio allegedly. Yeah, there's just no consistency here. There's no name in English, so there's definitely not enough there to make that look like that potentially is something worth mentioning. Gamasutra has this article, Google distanced itself from Epic versus the Apple legal dispute. Google has advised that the two cases should not be related. This is where Epic is going to try to save money, certainly, by having their fight with Apple merged into kind of like a class action with two co-defendants or I don't even know what the other one, co-prosecutors. I don't even know what it would be. Defendants and prosecutors are probably not even used as a phrase in civil court cases. Google clearly wants to have their own lawyers go their own way. They don't want to potentially have a mistake. They don't want Apple to make a mistake somehow that loses the case for Google, or vice versa. And they probably want to make Epic pay their lawyers twice to have two cases at the same time. Let's see, the exact claim here is the company claims the cases lack rescrit. The rescrit, I don't know how you'd pronounce that. Substantial parity in parties, transactions, and operative facts, and notes that there are a number of key differences between iOS Marketplace and their own Google Play storefront. Which, yeah, I could definitely see that both cases would go along separately. I could also see the judge saying, no, this is basically the same case. If you were to think of it a different way and say, if somebody was to go rob one bank and that bank robbery happened, let's say, in New York, so you're New York federal court, criminal court. And then that same person was to rob a bank in California. And so then that case should happen in California federal criminal court. It would be a very hard argument to say, well, he robbed 2 banks, or he's accused of robbing 2 banks, so we should just have both court cases in California or in New York. That's not how that would work at all. You would have one court case probably first, and then California or New York would say, hey, we'll just wait until your court case is done. Then once they've already been tried and convicted and thrown in jail for robbing that one bank, we'll then have a court case while they're in prison to then extend their sentence even more. And then there might be a bit of a fight, I suppose, as to which prison you want them in, but I imagine they don't care that much either, so I wouldn't be surprised if somebody got convicted of robbing a bank in New York and then they were convicted a second time of robbing a bank in California, if New York just agreed to house and imprison that person for the full duration of both convictions, and California would just pay some small fee for that instead of shipping them across the United States. That would be my equivalent take on the Apple and Google thing, since it was 2 separate actions in particular of Epic. It was not a single action, really. It was a single decision. It was a separate decision to change and breach the contract with Google versus changing and breaching the contract with Apple versus not really changing or breaching the contract with Microsoft and Sony PlayStation and Nintendo. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here, which may not actually be a game, called My Wolf Desktop Wild Pet. And yeah, that's what I'm talking about. There probably is a few screensaver type things out here. But if I was to air footage of this while talking about video game news, I don't think people would be interested. I don't think I would be interested. I think that's really what it boils down to, is like, who cares about people? If I'm not interested, I won't want to stream on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Half the time I don't get any viewers live anyways on my streams, so I have to make myself happy, otherwise I won't have enough motivation to keep on playing. You can see it actually is playing in the background. I'm a little surprised by that. But the idea of live wallpaper showing up on Steam is a little bit trepidatious. I'm a little afraid of where that could go. This is discounted to $3.59. Says it's a bunch of language supports and it's early access. Why would a screensaver need to be early access? Is a great question to ask. Next we have Survive or Thrive, which looks like an RPG Maker game with every single screenshot being the exact same. So it looks like it's probably not even an actual RPG Maker game. It looks like it's probably a visual text novel, a text-based game. They want $1.79 discounted, and it's bundled with a bunch of other stuff. It says it's English full audio. I seriously doubt that's true. Next, we have a game called Eterno Blade 2 Director's Rewind, which I've never heard of a game called Eterno Blade. It does seem like it's all over the place. It kind of feels like one of those Chinese games that's all over the place. It also kind of looks like it might be a cell phone game. Let's see. They want $19.99 discounted. There's a Eterno Blade 1 and 2 Saga Platinum Packs. This is Eterno Blade 1 English full audio. This is Eterno Blade 2, so if we were to look at Eterno Blade 1, this could give us some insight as far as when did this game come out. It came out September 7th, 2020, so it just came out at the same time. And like one user review. And the screenshots are loading at the moment. I think I have to put this on the follow list, the first one. And if the first one gets enough reviews to justify playing the series, which is a big if. These feel like PlayStation 2 games by the looks of it. And apparently this is a female character, although it looks more just like a long-haired male character to me. Interesting, like, boob window on the side there. Yeah, I'll put this on the follow list and we'll see what the reviews are. $6.69 is not crazy. Getting both games for $22.68 is not crazy depending on how long it is. But then there seems like there's a decent enough amount of DLC that might bump up the price to almost $40. And I don't think this developer probably has anything else on Steam. This might be a case of a developer having released this Core Cell technology company having released these on Switch or something, and then them being successful enough to justify coming to PC. Or it might just be that they are just kind of low effort games that they're trying to make seem like they're better quality than they are. Next we have a game on Steam called Another Road, which looks like people in underwear trying to shoot arrows and ride on wagons. This feels like this is a troll joke game. It doesn't feel like there's actual enough polish here for this to be something you'd really want to play. $1.99, no discount, English and Russian. Yep, again, definitely feels like that. Where am I? Can't even find my place. There we go. Next we have a game called Human Diaspora, which if you've heard the games, heard the words, I can usually pronounce them. Although that's not always true. This looks like it's probably one of those neon games. We've seen considerably fewer neon games with just bright colors and visual puke. It looks like it's a first-person shooter, but it kind of looks unpolished in that there's like 5 health bar, stamina bar type things, and then there's some kind of 3D map here. It seems like you're probably got 2 or 3 different kind of weapons and you're gonna boss rush through it. It's early access for $17.99, English full audio. I'm willing to skip this one, or I mean I could be super generous and put it on the follow list, but I don't think there's enough here. There's the problem with something like this too is if you had teased this and this was a teaser trailer, it might catch my attention. But the fact that you put it out for sale in early access lowers your credibility so much as a game publisher, and this is the only one they have on Steam, that I really don't want to give them the time of day to think, well, maybe they would polish this in the final version. I mean, it kind of doesn't matter. You've made your first impression now. Your first impression is that this looks sort of good, but not good enough, and that's really where I'm going to leave it, so I'm not going to put it on the follow list. Next, we have a game on Steam called Sweet Tooth, which is Sweet Tooth 2, and I think Sweet Tooth 1 we saw just on Monday, so it feels like they're flooding the Steam marketplace with these cell phone game type experiences. And yeah, just like the first game, it does not look quality enough to justify playing on PC. $2.34 discounted, English only. I'm a little surprised that there isn't a bundle for Sweet Tooth 1. And next we have Sakura Night 3, which is tagged as a simulation dating sim visual novel, with which the characters maybe are missing a little bit of polish on some of the color palettes, but they don't look terrible. But then again, this also is not tagged as adult content, so I'm not sure really where you go with that. The Sakura games in general tend to not seem to be very high quality. This is English and Chinese. Although it does seem like there are 2 or 3 different people out there that name their game Sakura, which Sakura just means cherry blossom. It's sometimes used as a name for a character, but not that often. And then TechRaptor has an article, Dragon Age 4, Everything We Know from the Gamescom trailer. Which, okay, if you're interested in Dragon Age 4, you might want to read this article. But I think most people should probably just wait. And then that brings me to the Humble Bundle. And I don't think we'll have any new Humble Bundles from Monday. Interesting, something is not scrolling right on the bundles. Let's see. Yeah. I don't think we're gonna see any new games bundles for the next week or so. And then that brings me to my Twitter feed. And I need to spend the rest of the day once again trying to get victories and just be done with the solo mode. We need to wrap up as much of that as possible. And then Twitter feed, what is new? Is there anything new of mention? We've been streaming for nearly 3 hours, and we're getting kind of consistent at that length, which is great. And we've figured out what to do on Mondays and what to do on Fridays to kind of spice them up. I tried something different today in that I started streaming before the announcement of the regular pre-recorded footage aired, in the hopes that maybe that would catch more viewers. I'm not sure it will. Like, I don't know if any of the viewer numbers I get told by YouTube are anywhere accurate. It would be kind of nice if it turned out that they were way wrong and I was getting thousands of more viewers, but then at a certain point, if YouTube says I'm not getting those viewers, it kind of doesn't matter. Like, that's the problem. Like, there really should be an independent panel or board to verify views, and just investigate internal ways things are done in YouTube in general. Tawana from Crash Bandicoot 4 and Crash Bandicoot 4 demo have been revealed. Tawana is Tawana. She's a character I think for the previous games, although she has a new look now because she's, I think, from a alternate universe, which, if that's the case, then there's also some weirdness there in that that's the Crash Bandicoot series going into alternate universes, not the Ratchet and Clank series that's going into going to different time zones and different universes. And from what I hear, the Ratchet and Clank It's About Time game is not actually going to have you jumping from different universes. very often, and that is going to be an on-rails kind of scripted experience done during boss chase sequences. You probably will do different levels in different universes, you just won't be doing the transitions. According to the Epic Games Store 2 hours ago, Apple will no longer allow users to sign into Epic Games accounts using Sign In with Apple as soon as September 11th. If you use Sign In with Apple, please make sure your email and password are up to date. Of course, Epic is saying Apple is doing that. It may very well be Epic is doing that, but who knows? Here we have an article. No new control features will be added, including modding. So Control effectively, the modding would have been the last gasp to potentially make Control something bigger than it is. And it's a fairly big game in the first place, but if it had supported modding, then they could have had life for a very long time. But clearly they want to be done with Control, and they want to make another Alan Wake game, and I'm not sure how many people will be willing to go on that journey with him. The Playism game show is set for September 21st. That will be indie games in Japan, I believe, showing off. Yeah, the pandemic, as I understand it, in Japan is also fairly under controlled, so there's a lot of ifs and possibilities in their ideas to have more events. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. So I don't think anything more that needs to be talked about at the moment, and may even choose to curate the games that are available and shown off on Friday. Well, that's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and get me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.